We're here at the 2010 SoCal Speed Shop Open House with Suzanne and Bob Williams. Bob is a legendary artist and hot rodder, and welcome to joining us here on CarCast.
Well, thank you, Matt.
Now tell us a little bit about, you brought this car out here, and supposedly, you started the rat rod trend, and you said you couldn't say that with a straight face, but I'm pretty sure that's accurate.
The name of rat rod came from Gray Baskerville, and it was kind of a silly, derogatory description of a form of genuine hot rods that were starting to surface. In '68, I bought a 32 Ford Roadster body. I got it through Jim Jacobs, which was Pete Shapiro's partner at one time. At the time, I was the art director for Ed Big Daddy Roth, and I worked with Jim Jacobs. So I hounded him to death to find me a Roadster body. And in 1968, he said, "Get your checkbook. I found one out in Seal Beach, $200. So we went out to Seal Beach, picked up this Roadster with a frame and a pink slip and steering and radiator and whatnot, and drug it home. At the time, I was living in Hollywood, so I kept it at a brother-in-law's house.
Now, let me ask you this important question. Were you married at that time?
I was married.
And this is Bob's wife. What was your feeling when he dragged you out down to go pick up this Roadster?
We were both looking for it. So we were really
so you were on board with it?
Oh yeah, I was in the truck too.
Nice,
Yeah.
Very nice.
32 Ford parts weren't that expensive, and they were fairly accessible. But as wealthier people came into the car circle,
Raised the price of all the parts that you needed.
a number of millionaires came were bored with sports cars and whatnot, and exhausted all the old classic cars, so they turned to hot rods, and the price on 32 and 33, 34 stuff went through the roof. It went through the roof. And Jim Jacobs and Pete Shapiro's had to deal with an awful lot of arrogant, wealthy people that had to have finished, perfect cars. And the name hot rod slipped away, and a new term came out for insurance purposes called street rod. As I started piecing this car together, I got a rolling chassis from Pete Eastwood that was working for Shapiro's. And I had to give Pete Shapiro's a number of t-shirt designs to pay for the chassis he was getting from Pete Eastwood for my Roadster. So I have a rolling chassis.
So your artwork paid off in some nice equipment from Pete.
This was 78 or 79, see. And they told me, they said, "Listen, we'll help you with this Roadster. We'll get this thing rolling for you, but we want to know that on the streets of LA, there will always be one 32 Ford Roadster in primer." So that was my intention. That was my intention. I'm going to predicate this sucker's finished. So we put that car together and got it running, and I drove that thing as everyday transportation. I'd leave it downtown. I just, that Roadster started the rat rod thing. People saw that the street rod thing had got so far out of hand and so expensive that the gentle fun of a hot rod was gone, and they could see that in my old Roadster.
In other words, mortal man couldn't go out and build a hot rod anymore.
No,
because you had too much billet stuff, too much crazy parts.
Well, it was not only that; it was peer pressure for perfection had satiated the United States. About 6 months after I had got the Roadster running and driven it all over, Pete Eastwood and a friend named Bearcat put together a 32 Ford two-door sedan in primer that made it on the cover of Hot Rod magazine. So I'm about 6 months ahead of Eastwood in the first rat rod. Well, I would go to car meets, and they would tell me, would you park that out at the end? I just got kind of used to it, So then as time went by, my nephew got into hot rods, Aaron Cahan, and I found him a 32 5-window coupe, and this was 20 years ago. He gave up Volkswagens and little mini trucks, and his friends started finding hot rods. And then all of a sudden they all started making rat rods. The name of their club is Choppers from Burbank, see? So then other clubs, young car clubs started, the Shifters and a whole bunch of the Rumblers, a whole bunch of young people started, all in California, and then it exploded all over the United States, then it exploded into Japan and Europe. the rat rod.
Well,
things.
you know, I think one of the things that's interesting is how much of the cultures come from Southern California, not California, but really specifically Southern California over the
You
years.
don't know how much culture come out of Southern California.
Well, besides our friendly people,
Surfing, skateboarding, bikers, tattoo culture.
the art of you and your friends back in that era.
Lowbrow art has sprung up here. I show in New York at art shows.
The Von
Poison there.
Von Dutch and
Yes, that's right.
all
Big Daddy
Ross,
That's
all of the
right.
guys.
You got it. So anyway, my Roadster's not here, but the story on my Roadster was everything started becoming primer. They called it suede. See, now
That's when you started thinking, I'm going to paint my car now and buck the system again.
Well, I had promised these guys I was never painted, but then every car was primered, and every car was a Brookville body or a fiberglass body, and I just kind of, well, I'm lost in this ocean again, you know. So I decided to paint the car a real garish race car style, like a redneck drag car or something, you know. Like a tasteless idiot would paint a car to catch attention from the grandstands. So I painted the car chartreuse and purple with a red band and gold leaf numbers on the side, and a little cactus with its fanny on fire running, and the name of the cactus was Prickly Heat.
Prickly Heat.
A big cartoon on the side of it. This got even more people upset than the primer 20 years earlier, say. 1993, I had my Roadster and driven it a long time, and I realized the price on these deuces is just getting insane, and I'd like a coupe, and I'd better buy it before the turn of the century. I'm never going to be able to touch one of these things. So I started looking for 32, 33, 34 Ford 3-window coupes, and I looked and looked and found a lot of junk, and then finally I found this thing, and it was in horrible shape. It was a gutted piece of junk with the top cut in. It was an old drag car.
It looks like it's already got a hell of a chop on it and
It
everything.
was chopped in 52. So I bought it for a nominal price. This thing was sucking up $100 bills like a heroin habit. I could not. Everything I bought for it at the time, I paid a record price for it. It had never been price paid that high for this and that, you know. So man, I'm glad I got it when I did, because these things have gone up an enormous price. My old rough and tumble coupe.
And it's
How often do you get to drive it? You definitely drive it. So
Me and
drove it here,
Suzanne
Matt.
Drive the cars all the time. We drive them all the time. They're like pets. They got to be exercised all the time.
Yeah.
You know, if you let them sit, the brakes go bad and whatnot. You got to continually exercise them. But anyway, before we go, let me thank again. You guys for talking to me, and I'd like to thank Pete Shapiris for being such a good friend over the years.
excellent. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. Have
Yeah,
fun here
pleasure to
today.
meet you. Thank you for
If
taking the
need anything
time.
else, you missed something, come back and I'll
We'll talk to your wife because she probably knows more than you.
She does.